First of all, let's begin by looking at what the experts are saying about your future right now. I did a quick look through some of the hot websites, forums, etc., to see where they think the hot job opportunities are around the health sciences, the health studies areas. And let's see, this forum, 2010, felt that these are the areas that were interesting: medical architect, meteorologist, etc., etc., etc. I'm going to show you a few of these slides, and I think we can extract some common themes, hopefully. That's the first slide. Second is the 10 top entrepreneurial careers. Sales, lawyers, marketing, nursing, health services. Do you see anything overlapping yet? Probably not. Probably not. Here's the next one. This is from Yahoo. Accounting, really, that's hot. Sales is hot. Lab tech is hot. Computer support. Maybe you start to see something similar now. Okay? Next one. Best healthcare jobs from U.S. News. Dentist, really? Nurse, pharmacist, physician, etc. One word in particular has come out of all four slides. I don't know if you've noticed yet. Have you? We'll see. Next one, top 10 in-demand health jobs from Keller. Keller Associates is a headhunting company in the U.S. They place people in healthcare industries across North America. Nurse, dental assistant, etc., etc., etc. You see the word that's coming out so far? You see it? See what word
I don't have my glasses.
All right, it's okay. Good excuse, good excuse. And this slide just gives you a salary breakdown of some of the top healthcare-oriented professions in the U.S. right now. Just to give you some context. And we see here that the nurses are making, at the high end, close to 100,000, etc. So that's kind of what we're looking at, mid-range of career. Now, careers of the future, according to salary.com, healthcare, infotech, alternative energy, law, blah, blah, blah. A couple of themes are rising. We'll go over those in a second. Last, jobs with the brightest future according to forums. Nurses. Again, nurses is one of those words that keeps coming up here. I'm not saying you should be a nurse. We're going to examine what this means in a second. Sales again, that's interesting. Clerks, food prep, really? Some of these I'm not going to agree with, right? And some of these are put together by experts in a room who were just given free coffee one day and told to give us a list. But after several of these episodes, some commonality will arise. Jobs with the poorest futures. This is curious. Farmers, really? We all need farmers, they produce food. So what's going on here? What is it about farmers that's making the economists kind of nervous? Some obvious ones. Postal service. No one uses the postal service anymore. Because why? Because we email. Right? No one sews anymore because we have, no one does manufacturing in North America anymore. Switchboard operator, not relevant because no one has phones anymore. Fast food, well, there's lots of fast food, but again, it's a supply-demand thing. There's lots of people looking for fast food positions. And data entry, because now data comes already pre-entered for the most part.
What are you doing right now?
Right, what are the trends? Here are the big ones that I saw from those lists. Nursing. Again, I'm not saying you should be a nurse. What I'm saying is there's something about nursing that seems to make everybody really excited. And what it is it's a skills-based health profession that's not at the top end of cost. Right? So, definitely skills, they're hard skills, but they're not outpriced. So what I advise my students all the time is to seek, well, if you can't seek the very top level, the surgeons, etc., seek skills that are universally marketable and valued in the global landscape. Nursing is very hot right now and continue to be so for decades to come. Computers in general. What kind of computer skills? We'll look at that in the future. But right now, the world is struggling with something called the digital divide, trying to bring in information technology into areas where previously it struggled to penetrate. And if you can be a person that helps bring that about, you have value. It's massive finance, attaching a monetary value to these issues. If you can do all three of these things, or have value in all three domains, that's a really powerful work with.
I'm going home.
I do this to scare my students. So choosing your work future, you can choose two of these things. You can be interesting, legal, or well paid, but not all three. I don't agree with this. This is what people often think. One of the ways to get all three things, I think, is through entrepreneurship. So my personal background, I'd tell you, I'm a professor at the University of Ottawa. I'm a local health specialist and epidemiologist, but I own 3 consulting companies. I'm fairly well consulted over my lifetime. And my strategy for doing this has always been around seek happiness, and everything else will come. But I seek happiness strategically, and I'll show you some of the strategy in a second. Strategically around creating value, around my personal values, and long-term landscape economic value. And woven through that discussion is skills. So we talked a bit about these things, so let's see if it comes together, sort of. I see that Mr. Ray is smiling over there. I can't tell if he's smiling in agreement or disagreement yet.
I'm smiling at opportunity.
Ah, okay, interesting. Let's see how it manifests. So, how do you plan for your long-term future? I like to think of it in 3 stages. One is think about what's coming down the pipeline. Right? So historically, what's changing right now? We saw already that people think that certain career options have poor futures. Farming, I disagree with that for other reasons. Postal service, etc. Why is that happening? Well, it's happening because of large macroeconomic changes. In Canada, we're no longer a manufacturing society. We are a service society. Manufacturing has moved to China for the most part. The expanding economies are Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa for a little bit. Mexico is coming up there, Indonesia, etc. Those are the manufacturing hubs. Historically, manufacturing comes well. No. That's not to say you should be a manufacturer. It's to say that you should be aware of where the wealth is being generated right now, because that will dictate how you form your business, your clientele, etc. Middle class, small economy as a whole. In my opinion, the wealth that we saw in the 60s and 70s is gone in Canada and will be gone for the rest of your lifetime, in my opinion. I could be wrong. That has to do with certain demographic realities and certain economic choices being made by other countries. So, if that's the case, you have to be strategic now in making investments in your career to leverage wealth and opportunity in places where it exists. That doesn't mean you have to move to those places. It just means that your focus should be to access the power and wealth where it exists. And lastly, what are the timelines relevant to you personally? So a lot of people give you advice about what's your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, etc. All of that is relevant. But think about it in terms of your personal life goals also. Do you want children? Do you want to stay at school for a long time? Do you want to travel? All these things have to be woven into your long-term plans. Okay, 2 things that are certain for the future. Things will change. We can't predict what's going to change. We can't predict if, climate change devastates our natural resources. We can't predict if suddenly someone discovers plentiful, cheap energy tomorrow and our economic infrastructure crumbles. We can't predict these things. What we can do then is to make our career as robust against change as possible. In my opinion, the way to do that is to focus on skills. Right? I'll tell you a story. My sister is a political scientist, and she did her thesis on something called liberation theology, which is the technique of looking at the role of the Catholic Church in Marxist governments in Central America. And she did this in the 1980s when that was a big hot topic. And when it came time to look for an academic job, that was her topic that she shopped around. But as she did so, all these governments in Latin America fell, and liberation theology was no longer part of their reality. Suddenly she had an obsolete skill set, and she couldn't shop herself around to the employers anymore. So what did she do? Well, it was a bit of a tense moment. She had to rebrand herself around more long-lasting, non-temporary skills. What she chose to do was look at the methodology of data collection. That was her thing now. So it doesn't matter if history throws her another joker in the pile. People always need people with a certain kind of methodology that you can apply, regardless if your topic is irrelevant. So in my field, around health research, I tell my students all the time, wouldn't it be great if they cure cancer tomorrow? Not that what they do. But if they do, suddenly a generation of cancer specialists are at work. So to be robust against that, your focus shouldn't be on the cancer, it's on the techniques that you use to investigate the cancer. So you can take that and move it over to a different domain. So those with multiple skills, different identities, and different perspectives will be valuable. You can take your skill set and move it around different areas. If you're a career programmer, can you marry that programming to healthcare and human resources, or to universal healthcare and agriculture, etc.? So be a solution for a broad dynamic, or a broad set of domains. Things considered. Your values, as I mentioned, what's important to you? Is it important to you that you have lots of free time? That's going to affect what you choose. Is it important to you that you work with people? Is it important to you that you're outside the line, etc.? Don't make yourself unhappy. If these things are important to you, make sure that you build into your future plans opportunities for those things. What are your limitations? If you can't move outside the country, know that now. That's going to affect your opportunities in the future. I'm not saying you have to be mobile, but if you're not, just be ready for that. It's going to affect you. Your timeline. Okay, if you want a family, if you want to live abroad, all those other things. Be aware where your personal time is going to take you. And what are you willing to learn? So most of my students are afraid of math, which is kind of scary. I'm an epidemiologist, so you shouldn't be afraid of math. So, and other ones are afraid of writing. If those are the 2 heavy domains of skills that the world is always in need of. Certain kinds of quantitative skills and certain kinds of communication skills. So if you're afraid of one or both of them, get over that fear now. And while you're young, invest in getting them, because you will have to be valuable. Okay, the skills. Some skills are universal and timeless. And again, the communication skills that I like my students to focus on are writing and language. So there's an old adage that you're not truly educated unless you can speak more than one language. Okay? You don't have to be fluent in them, but if you communicate two languages, then you have advantages in the world. Can you do public speaking? Can you have interpersonal relationships? Conflict management, these are valuable things in the workforce. And writing is so key. We don't teach it well enough anymore. Like I love that grammar thing on the wall there, it's fantastic. I wish my students could do it. So many workplaces in the world, if you can write for a variety of audiences. Grants reports, I mentioned Précis. Or Précis? Précis is summary. So a lot of the consultant work I do for government involves summarizing big ideas into half a page, 1 page, etc. CHRF, the Canadian Health Research Services Foundation, has a model for writing called 25-5-1. What that says is, for any big issue, you should be able to summarize that in 25 pages for the consulting contract. And that should be able to be summarized in 5 pages for the guy who will go and brief the minister. And that should be able to be summarized into 1 page for the minister himself. I would add to that 25-5-1 and a bullet point. And the bullet point should be what's going to cost. Right? So at all times, we're focusing on writing in a powerful, concise, targeted way. Communication. Okay? And to be able to target multiple audiences. Writing for a client is not the same as writing for a funder, which is not the same as writing for a newspaper for the general audience, which is not the same as writing for a public, for example. So understanding who you're talking to and being able to use the right words and verbiage, etc., is a powerful, powerful skill set. The mathematical skills that are never out of fashion are statistical analysis. Now, with the advent of computer technology, we can do all kinds of more complicated stats analyses, but if you understand how they work, it's not a difficult thing to get. A simple second-year stats class will take you far in life. You have value. The majority of the world can't do this stuff. If you can do it or understand it or interpret it, you have value. Econometric analysis has to do with using stats around behavioral analysis, etc., financial analysis, and evaluation. So almost every large, I have an entire company that's based on evaluating development projects. So these multi-million-dollar development projects around the world are funded by the World Bank and SGS, etc. Very few are evaluated. And now there's a requirement that they must be evaluated. So they set aside $25,000 to $100,000 for evaluation, and no one knows how to do it. So I step in and just clean up every step of the way. It's a simple thing to do. It takes some basic stat skills and some basic research design skills and some really powerful communication skills, and suddenly I'm the evaluation expert. That's never going out of fashion, because people need evaluation in order to be efficient and to service their funders and their client base, etc. So that's not going anywhere. That requires a numerical basis. Some skills are temporal. I mentioned computers are good, but my resume 10 years ago had Microsoft Word as a skill, right? Because 10 years ago that was kind of rare-ish. 20 years ago it was WordPerfect. That WordPerfect is dead now. So the actual specifics are going to change over time. Now everyone is supposed to know Microsoft Word. That's assumed, right? Everyone's supposed to know how to use certain social media. So the specifics will expire, but the overall trends remain the same. So be robust around technology. Anything involving the specifics of technology are going to be temporary. There was a time 25 years ago where your typing speed went on your resume. Nobody cares anymore. Okay? So anything geography specific. So if you, like my sister, for example, specializes in Latin America, if there's no wealth there, it's not relevant. Let's put it bluntly. Okay? Invest in your skills now. I make my students blog. Now, blogging can have a bad connotation, but make it a professional blog. Write about something relevant to your profession that will build value for you down the road. You can actually improve your skills at the same time get your name out there in a free, easy way. So if you're a professional, if you want to build a profession in, let's say, I don't know, healthcare financing, start a blog. Every week you write 3 or 4 paragraphs on issues in healthcare financing. It may not get anywhere, but guaranteed it'll make you a better thinker around this issue. And you can always point to what you've written in the future saying, I've thought about this. I have value here, etc. Write. Write for fun, try to get published. Do it until it becomes second nature. This is a skill that will serve you. Dual skill set. All right, so it's not sufficient anymore to be good at one thing. Really got to be good, really good at lots of different things. So if your current major was a business, you said, right? So throw in business with other things, like finance is obvious, computer science, education, policy is pretty valuable, journalism, why not? This list was made for my health sciences students, because health sciences plus these things have power, but these things plus anything will have value as well. I think it's useful to be able to describe your skills quickly, especially if you're not from this culture. As I mentioned, wealth is being produced in other countries. That's where the clientele tends to be. So the language you use has to be universal. I make my students do something called the elevator pitch. That is, they pretend they're in the elevator with Bill Gates for a minute and a half. So if you've got 90 seconds in an elevator with Bill Gates to change your life, explain to Bill Gates why he should care who you are and invest heavily in your life. Right? So if you can do so in powerful, simple language that's not jargon-driven, and you understand yourself and you understand your platform. So practice your elevator pitch. Some things you probably haven't thought about: working in policy, being an evaluator, as I mentioned. We're here to talk about entrepreneurialism. Foreign issues, health economics. Again, this list is mostly for my health sciences students, but it applies to you as well. It's areas that we don't tend to talk about at university or college, that we don't train you for explicitly, but these are actually high employment, high consulting areas. And general advice. One is be extraordinary. Pretty much everybody competing at a certain level has degrees and high marks, etc. So you got to stand out. You stand out by building value, doing extra things. Writing, publishing, volunteering. Start a business right now and fail at it. Start several and fail at them. Keep on going until you're good at it. Educate yourself. So don't rely on this school to teach you everything you need to know. Come to sessions like this. Go volunteer, go attend extra conferences, etc. Keep track of everything you do somewhere. Use LinkedIn or these online services to make a list of the skills you have learned and things that you've done, because you're going to forget them. You're going to forget you did them. And one day it'll become useful for you to market yourself. So you need a list. Learn how to network. So there's a right way and a wrong way to network. In my opinion, the right way is to be generous. Walk into a room, introduce yourself, and see how you can help others. By giving, you always get back. I'm giving right now. I expect anything in return. I'll get something out of it somewhere down the road, right? So most annoying thing is you go to a conference and there's a wine and cheese and the students come up to you and ask you for jobs and stuff. Everyone knows why they're there. But instead of asking me for something, say, hey, you talked about this in your presentation. Have you ever thought about doing this instead? Suddenly you have given me something, a perspective I hadn't had before. Now I see that you're valuable to me. The bad news. Okay, we are undergoing dramatic economic change, shifting wealth from the west to the east. Okay, that's scary for a lot of people. I don't think we are going to regain the prosperity that we had in my youth, not in my lifetime. Right? The competition for opportunity is stiffer than ever. In fact, the overall wealth here may be in decline in your lifetime. So things like external threats, climate change, energy, these are beyond your control. But the good news is that you, sir, are among the lucky handful of 7 billion people. The majority of the world don't have what you have: an education, opportunity, us, those kinds of things. And you also live in a country that allows you to be extraordinary if you make the effort. So most people you will encounter are content to simply exist and be modestly comfortable. If you expend a little bit of effort, you are by default excellent. So be excellent. It's easy to be excellent in Canada. I don't mean that to diminish Canadians. I love it here, obviously, right? But people don't take advantage of the opportunity here to be excellent. You have an opportunity. And there are things you can do now to make yourself excellent. I mentioned some of them already. So, some parting advice. How many slides? 2 slides left. Okay. 1, think global. Don't think about just opportunities here. Again, all the money has moved to Asia and the Middle East and bits of Latin America. Opportunity lies in between disciplines. So not just in business, not just in health, not just in computer science, but in between where they meet. That's where value is created. I have a friend who defines creativity in 3 ways. Creativity is either inventing something new, which happens once every 10,000 years, or it's taking 2 separate things and bringing them together, like I like to walk, I like to listen to music, the Sony Walkman. Right? Or it's taking something that worked here and moving it over there. So explore all 3 kinds of creativity. You can create value that way. The hardest thing is usually more valuable. Math is usually more valuable than not doing that, because it's harder. Associate yourself with power. That sounds a bit cheesy and a bit, classist. I don't mean it that way. What I mean is seek out opportunity where opportunity exists. You know, if right now the people you associate with don't have opportunity for you, create other social circles in addition to your current ones. Right? Branch out. Be strategic about your choices. So, what do I mean by that? Choose, if you're doing a graduate degree or other education, choose opportunities that not only make you happy, but give you advantages in life. And lastly, play the long game. This is not just about the next couple of years, it's about the next 20, 30, 40, 50 years of your life. That was the last slide. Man, I talk fast. Okay. Whew. Any questions, sir? Or anybody?
No. I'll ask a question.
Sure.
What's your best advice for a young entrepreneur to get himself started in his field of industry?
I'm a big fan of low risk, high visibility first attempts. So we live in an era where you can do anything you want online for free. So I have a series of experimental businesses on the side that I run that use turnkey operations. So by turnkey I mean there are companies that do all of the financial stuff for you, like Cafe Press, for example. So Cafe Press is a company that if you upload your intellectual property, they will brand it on t-shirts and mugs, etc. And there's no warehousing cost at your end. All you have to do is market the thing. So let's say you have a wonderful phrase that you want to sell, right? I don't know, I can't think of it offhand. So you create a little logo for it, upload the Cafe Press website, create a little domain there. Now, all your job to do now is to market it to your friend using social media or whatever, and drive them to the website. If they click on it, say, I want that mug with your logo on it, Cafe Press will charge them $20, take their 10% as overhead, and you get the rest. So it costs you nothing in terms of overhead, there's zero risk. The reason I recommend it is obviously there's a potential cash flow, but also it gives you experience in doing the marketing and creating value and owning the intellectual property. And if you fail, you've lost nothing. Okay, so the opportunities like that exist today that didn't exist 20 years ago, for you to have almost zero risk entrepreneur experience. Okay. The other thing, of course, is beyond that, because that will make you rich. That will just give you a foot in the water. And obviously you want money down the road to sustain yourself, etc. Is to find skills that you have that you can leverage and create value for in a global market that maybe others don't have as well as you do. It doesn't have to be unique skills. It doesn't have to be something, I can do this one thing that nobody else can do. I can write upside down and backwards. Nobody cares about that. It has to be something that other people want. Others can do it as well, but you can do it just as well as they can or better. So the skills you want to develop, of course, are the marketing, the pricing, the competition, the negotiation, and financial management skills. These are the things that I think are the backbone of developing small business in the future. And the things that'll take you maybe into the next level, I don't know, because I'm not at the next level. So hopefully my colleagues can help you there. That was a long, rambling answer.
No, it was a very good answer. So Cafe Press, that's the name of the website?
That's the one I use a lot for experimenting with different ideas. And there are a few like them. I'm trying to think of other ones. Shopify's one.
Yeah, Shopify, I've seen that in Ottawa.
So it's a wonderful opportunity, especially for young people to get started with zero money up front. I think maybe it's $15 up front to have a website, something like that.
That's cheap.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have a question for you, Raywat. You said that you like to do everything to be happy.
Yes.
How do you define happiness?
That's a good question. Happiness is a combination of contentedness and enthusiasm, and also hopefulness. So despondency is the opposite of happiness. If I wake up being dejected or dreadful, dreading the day, then I'm unhappy. If I wake up being hopeful about the day, then I'm happy. So I like to have opportunity coming down the pipeline. Even if I'm making no money or not being successful, if I feel that I have the potential to do so that day, I'm happy. So that's my personal definition of happiness. Other people may define happiness as if my loved ones are healthy. That's all I care about. If so, good for you. I will never take that away from you. Other people actually define happiness as wealth. I'm not going to criticize them for that. That's their personal definition of happiness. So this is going to be a personal choice, obviously. For me individually, it's about contentedness and hopefulness.
What?
Great.
That sounds a very good answer, actually.
It's a way better than average answer.
Yes, it is.
Any questions? All right.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much for your time, Raywat.